So as you look to the summer, a lot of companies are looking at this labor market and trying to figure out how to keep their existing employees in seat and engaged, and also marry the business needs that still need to get accomplished. So some have considered unlimited paid time off, or PTO programs. Some thoughts I have about unlimited PTO. So one, the term unlimited PTO, I actually hate. And that's because there have to be limits. So a lot of times if you give employees a benefit, but it's not exactly as said, it can end up being like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because there have to be limits. Someone's not going to be able to start and then take months on end. Or if someone starts and says, hey, I can actually get my job done in 4 days, I'm going to take off every Friday. When they're told no, all of a sudden that looks like limitations. And so the term flexible PTO has gone around. And if you're going to do an unlimited type program, some type of phrasing like that can be better. But also some considerations about paid time off. So in the United States anyway, there's no obligation to provide vacation or a unified PTO type bank that includes time off for fun. But there are paid sick leave laws depending on the city and state you're in. But a lot of companies provide a PTO bank instead of delineating amongst the sick leave. So companies look from a finance perspective, because sometimes I hear people misquoted, but in a lot of states, it's not required to actually pay out paid time off at the end of employment. It's optional. As long as it's specified in a written policy, in many locations, you can not pay employees at that PTO. And I actually understand why some companies do, because the purpose of paid time off, ostensibly, is for your employees to take that time and recharge, because employees that constantly work, don't take any time off, can face all sorts of issues from burnout to mental health. And so even if they're around, they oftentimes may be having high stress. They're not able to perform. So if companies want to incentivize people taking that time off, then they may say that we're not paying paid time off in any locations where we're not legally required. And again, it can vary location by location. But other companies will look at payouts on termination and say, well, we will do unlimited so that never technically accrues, and so it doesn't have to be paid out at the end of employment. That can be a huge area for caution. And that's because in places like California, everyone that has ever worked with employees knows California can be a really challenging jurisdiction. California's courts have said that in certain circumstances, an unlimited plan may still need to be paid out, especially if it's not in writing, if there's so many limitations that it's really not unlimited. If there's an expectation, like, you can take off 20 days, then in California or other places, they may say, well, it really is a program providing for this amount, so this amount has to be paid out on termination. So companies that want to do unlimited paid time off for the financial benefit of taking that accrual off the balance sheet have to be very, very careful in doing so. But again, unlimited paid time off oftentimes can have employees feeling like it's a trap. So some of the things you can do to avoid that, it's super important that leadership is championing it at the top, and not only talking about taking time off, but also taking it off and modeling themselves. Whether it's a boss telling their team, I'm going to take off field day tomorrow to help out at my kids' school. I won't be on email, but I'll be back in touch next week if you need anything, talk to this person. Modeling that, or encouraging their employees to take time off. Even one HR director I talked to recently goes through and tracks the PTO and flags to people, hey, you haven't taken your time off. You should if you'd like to. Just to remind people that it's there and reinforce it. Because if you have a program, whether it's unlimited PTO or any type of paid time off program, if employees don't see the leaders or others taking it, they may feel like they can't themselves. So it's very important to be mindful about ensuring that it's put in action and having your HR team that's promoting it as well. And then again, it's the decision. A lot of companies may decide not to pay out on termination. As I said, I totally understand the reasons behind that, because it can really encourage employees to take that time off, rather than looking at it as a bonus at the end of employment. So they, continue on working on burnt out, and then when they leave, they have 3 or 4 weeks of extra pay coming up. But again, that doesn't always serve the employee's interest or the company. But it's very important to be upfront, because other times employees look no further than some of my TikTok comments to see people saying, my company doesn't pay off, they're cheap. And that may be the reaction that some employees have. So always communicating the rationale behind any policy is helpful. So to conclude, as you're looking for the summer and ways to get creative, a few things to keep in mind. One, be careful calling anything unlimited, because there may be meetings come up, or if you have a June 30 end of fiscal year or priorities, then employees may not be able to take off that last week in June or other times. So rather than calling something unlimited, clarifying where their limits may be, or having other phrasing. Or if you want to do a benefit to employee, increasing the amount of accrual they get, understanding that can have ramifications on your P&L in those places where you have to pay out vacation or otherwise. But a lot of things you can do for employees that help to get them through times where they may feel like they've just been worked for the last couple years. And that always, of course, the phrasing I'll have is to ensure that you're treating employees equally, that employees feel like, whether it's by employee on a team or department by department, that people are treated consistently as much as possible, not being treated differently based on any protected characteristic. All of those things can be super important. So in phrasing, I do not like the phrase unlimited PTO, but I do think companies that want to help their employees have a lot of options in ways that they can give employees that time to recharge.